lot of people think it's kind of a one and done thing, or that it's this magic bullet that they're going to be able to just lay down some cardboard, throw some hay on it, and they're going to have this beautiful planting area. I would love if that were the case, but it doesn't always work that way. It's usually just not quite that simple. I'm going to show you where this sheet mulching project fell off the rails, what we're doing now to fix it, and how you can not make the same mistakes. Mistakes were made, and now I've got grass in places where grass ain't supposed to be. Let's start by addressing what the heck is sheet mulching anyways. So sheet mulching is a practice that's used a lot in no-till gardening. It's a technique of creating new planting beds without having to dig or till the soil. So basically, instead of going down, we're building up. You generally cover the soil with some sort of barrier that's going to help kind of contain and kind of kill back the growth that's already there. And then you're going to top it with new soil, organic matter, mulch, compost, organic matter of some sort. And then what that does is that creates a new planting bed area. Sheet mulching is really popular in no-till gardening, and frankly, it's just a really good way to develop new planting space, because what it does is it leaves all of that life that's happening below the surface. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of microorganisms, insects, worms, fungi that are at work creating this ecosystem. And that soil ecosystem is what's responsible for making sure that our plants are healthy. Every time we disturb it, it's generally not good. So this is a way where we can still benefit ourselves by creating new planting beds and not having to compete with the weeds, the brambles, the grass. So we can still get our beautiful planting bed, but we can do it without completely destroying the below ground ecosystem that's already in place. Behind me is actually one of the larger no-till bed spaces that I've developed over the last year and a half that we've been at this property. This is an area that used to just be grass and weeds, and it's under this beautiful apple tree. So I actually used a no-till approach to sheet mulching this area, and look how beautiful it is now. The tree is certainly a lot happier, and we have all of this planting space where we're going to do an apple tree guild, a polyculture design basically, to have a bunch of different perennial foods in this space. I've used sheet mulching for many years, and now we're using it to create a large area where we're going to do perennial plantings. So this area will actually extend all the way back and around and basically create a half circle around the garden area. It's a big space, and so there's no way we were going to develop it any other way than sheet mulching. So obviously I've had a lot of success with sheet mulching. But the thing is you have to do it right. So a lot of people think it's kind of a one and done thing, or that it's this magic bullet that they're going to be able to just lay down some cardboard, throw some mulch on it, or throw some hay on it, and they're going to have this beautiful planting area. Unfortunately, I would love if that were the case, but it doesn't always work that way. It's usually just not quite that simple. When you're sheet mulching, there's a lot of components, right? We're working with nature. We can't plan it out. We can't always, decide the way that it's going to go in our brain is the way it's going to go in real life. And that's what happened here. Trouble struck. This whole garden area of ours was a pasture. And so really we're going over a lot of pasture grass, weeds, things like that can be really aggressive. This is like crabgrass, fescues, things like that get like longer tap roots and can spread like crazy. I was continuing this area. There's a very nice spot of it right over here. So this spot did incredibly well, and I was continuing it, and we were moving along, and I was just going for it, right? I was just throwing stuff down. I was making fast progress, and it was fast progress. Let's say that. It wasn't good progress. I was being lazy. It was laziness that struck, not disaster. It was just laziness. I got it all sheet mulched. It looked beautiful. And then the grass just came right back up through all of my sheet mulching. And within a couple of months, we had grass again. Like it looked just like that over here. We're going to break down these mistakes one by one so that you don't make the same ones. Mistake number one was that I didn't properly prepare the ground. In a lot of places, you can just lay down your barrier, which is usually cardboard, brown paper. We like barriers that dissolve. In this type of gardening, we want to access everything, all that goodness that's happening in the soil below. We use ones that will eventually decompose. So I use cardboard, and I laid down the cardboard. But because the grass is so aggressive grass, because of the aggressive grass, basically what happened was that wasn't enough. You have really persistent weeds, or if you have grass like, fescue style grass that you're going over, crabgrass, things like that, you're going to want to prepare the ground first before you start sheet mulching. Some of the ways you can do that, solarizing is a great way, and that's basically where you lay down like a tarp or black plastic. You leave it in place and it basically suffocates the growth that's there and kills it back. It takes a little time, especially when we're working in an area this large. It would be a lot of, moving the tarp from place to place. Another thing you can do is obviously cut the sod, cut the grass and remove it or dig it up. It's a lot of work, especially in this large of a space. Another option is burning it back. So you can burn back the above ground growth. Fire has been used for thousands upon thousands of years to prepare cultivation land. Indigenous people have done it for a very long time, and it's a very safe and effective way to get rid of that above ground growth. Then you can go ahead and start your sheet mulching. Now, obviously use a torch, something safe and contained, and do it under the right conditions. We used to do this a lot in Idaho where things were just drier. It was easier to burn them back. We find that here where things are so wet and so green all the time, it's a little bit harder. And for a space this big, it would take a very long time. Another really good way to prepare the ground before you start sheet mulching so that you have more success and you have less weeds popping up is by using animals to clear the area first. You have a lot of brambles, a lot of poison ivy, nettles, things like that you don't necessarily want to touch. Goats are great for that. They can actually go in and eat that all out. They love it. Like they'll eat raspberry thorns. They don't care. Goats are a great way to go if you're clearing, a lot of above ground growth, especially if it's stuff that you don't really want to touch. Pigs, if you have access to pigs, they do an amazing job. They will root around, they'll dig up that earth and basically till it for you, but in a much more natural way than if you were to go in with a tiller. The option that we have used is chickens. So we have our tractor chickens out here. We didn't do this the first time. Again, remember, I was lazy. Makes an amazing difference. I've been amazed at how incredibly productive they are in clearing the space. Definitely find a way to prepare the ground first if you have super aggressive growth. The second mistake that I made out of laziness was that I didn't do a proper barrier between the existing growth and the new organic matter that I was putting on top. That is so important because the goal is that we want to be able to have a thick enough barrier there that it's going to kill back that growth, because it's not going to have proper nutrients. It's not going to have the sun. It's not going to have all that. It's going to die back. But that barrier needs to stay in place long enough for that to happen, and not for the growth down below to just like punch right through and come back and be like, hey, I'm back. I use cardboard. I find that it works really well. You can use like brown craft paper, but for me, again, it's just not thick enough to do the job. I wasn't super careful about making sure that the edges overlapped and that there weren't gaps in it. I should have doubled it up. Another thing is that I didn't leave a border. Really important that you don't just cover the areas that you want sheet mulch. You also need to leave a little bit of a border, like 6 inches to 1 foot of a border space between the old growth and where you are developing your new planting space. It's going to give you a buffer so you don't just have that old grass and weeds growing right back into your new planting area. The next mistake that I made really had to do with what's going on top. In our area, we like to use already composted compost. So fully finished compost. We make our own compost, and it's a mix of our horse manure, chicken manure, shavings, spent hay, bedding, everything like that. It takes me about 6 weeks to go from start to finished compost, and we really do have an abundant amount of it. But because I was in a hurry, I didn't take the time, and basically what I did was I would just bring out the manure from the horse stalls and dump it on the cardboard in this space. The problem with that is that horse manure especially doesn't like break down all of those weed seeds. So you still get a lot of weeds in it and a lot of grass seeds. This is also one of the problems with hay. If you're using a hay, you're going to end up with the same issues. So that's fine if you know that and you're going to be super diligent about, continually hoeing that up, making sure that you're pulling that grass. Life got busy and I didn't have the time to keep up with it. So what we ended up with was just a big mess. And honestly, I probably laid down too thin of a layer anyways because of how aggressive the growth that was already existing in this space was. Use a thick enough layer. I like to do 4 to 8 inches in a new space with really aggressive growth. Make sure that you're using fully composted organic material. When you're using fully finished compost, what that does is it just makes it easier on you to be able to not have to keep up with as many weeds and compete with them. Make sure that you're covering the soil. So in most areas, as soon as I put my mulch down, the next growing season, when I know all the weeds are going to pop up, I plant something else there instead. Remember, if we don't cover the ground is going to do it for itself. I plant things like calendula that spreads super fast, squashes that are low growing and creeping, and they have those big leaves that shade out other weeds. We can choose what we want to grow, and it will outcompete a lot of those weeds and really help. I didn't have the time to do that in this area, and compared to the area where I did, there was a huge difference. Hopefully you've done everything right and you have a beautiful sheet mulch new planting bed. If not though, if you're like me and maybe you didn't do it all correctly or you got a little bit lazy, what can you do now to fix it? So if you have a lot of new growth in the area, the best thing that you can do, and what I'm doing, is to go back through and remove as much of that growth as possible. I am running the tractor chickens through the area. You can see over here, they are solidly working their way through. You can see a huge difference between where they've been and where they haven't been. I go through secondly with a hoe and I kind of get out more of those aggressive roots. Next, after that, I lay down a heavy layer of cardboard, heavy being the key. So I'm properly laying down the right amount. And you can see also I've left that buffer area so that basically there is a buffer between our grass pathways and the bed. So that creates an area where it really has some good separation. I'll lay down some bark on that once I get it and really have a high carbon material on it. And that's also going to help suppress the growth of the grass. I feel like everything is rhyming today. Aggressive grass and grass growth, and I feel like I'm in like Dr. Seuss. Once I've got that, I've got my cardboard down, then I'm going back through, I'm laying another thick layer. We're talking 4 to 8 inches of our compost. So this is finished compost. It's not just the manure and the hay and everything that I'm dumping on it. This is the finished compost. So this is actually ready to be planted in as soon as the new growing season starts. So here in early spring, I'm going to basically either cover crop it or cover it with fast growing annuals that are going to create a lot of biomass, a lot of above ground growth, and they're going to help choke out those weeds, shade them out, outcompete them. That's what I'm doing right now. It's been a big project. It was a big project to begin with, and there's still a lot more to do. So if you do it right the first time, it will be better off from the start, and you'll have more time, less work, and a more productive garden space. Be sure you hit that like and subscribe button because my dog Stanley will knock over the camera otherwise. Because it helps introduce this content to a whole new group of people. This is a new station, so I really appreciate any help we can get to get the word out, help introduce more people to permaculture, and teach them about how to grow their own food using sustainable and natural methods.